Let's talk about the gang, the Rolling 60 Crips, right? Let's take the elephant. We're going to remove the elephant out of the room. Okay. We're going to talk about the Rolling 60s. They're approximately...
Federal agents stormed multiple Los Angeles homes tied to Eugene Big U Henley, and what they uncovered has triggered one of the most explosive federal cases in years. From a sweeping RICO indictment to allegations of a mafia-like criminal network, the operation sent shockwaves through the city. In this video, we break down what really happened during those raids and why it changes everything. Long before federal agents converged on his properties, Eugene Big U Henley Jr. had already become a figure woven into the complicated fabric of Los Angeles. His name moved through the city with a mixture of respect, fear, and myth, shaped by decades of influence that began long before he appeared in music studios or community programs. Henley's ascent started in the 1980s, when he emerged as a prominent figure within the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips, one of the most recognized street gangs in South Los Angeles. His reputation grew quickly, fed by the alliances he formed and the authority he carried. But in 1991, a robbery that spiraled into chaos pulled him into the federal system. He would spend the next 13 years in prison, a period that would later form the foundation of his public reinvention.
I'm banging on her.
T-Real too, come on, girl.
She like, you doing 2 seasons and one. That's that for Crenshaw movie.
No, that's that for Common Crib. What's funny?
When he walked out of federal custody, Los Angeles had shifted. The music scene had expanded, street politics had changed, and the city he returned to was searching for new voices to influence its direction. Henley stepped directly into that space. He re-entered the public eye not as a gang figure, but as a music manager, community organizer, and self-declared anti-violence advocate. He managed Dog Pound rapper Corrupt and moved through the hip-hop world with a confidence that reflected both his past and his new ambitions. His ties with Death Row Records co-founder Suge Knight helped cement his standing within an industry built on power, story, and perception. Artists, athletes, and media personalities often sought his guidance when navigating Los Angeles. He became known for the practice of check-ins, conversations that, depending on who described them, were either about protection, respect, or influence. Parallel to this growing presence in entertainment, Henley founded Developing Options, a nonprofit aimed at reducing gang violence and creating pathways for youth. The organization received support from the city of Los Angeles and donations from major public figures. To many, it looked like a genuine transformation, an evolution from gang leadership to community mentorship. Yet according to federal prosecutors, this transformation was not as clean as it appeared. They now argue that behind the public image of a mentor stood a man who quietly leveraged status, connections, and history to maintain control. And as investigators traced the timeline of his influence, a more complex picture began to surface, one where public recognition and alleged criminal strategy moved side by side. Still, one question pressed against the narrative of his reinvention. How much of Big U's new life was a rebirth, and how much was a continuation hidden behind a different voice? The Big U Enterprise, a mafia-like operation. As federal prosecutors laid out their case, one phrase surfaced again and again: the Big U Enterprise. It was the government's name for what they described as a mafia-like organization, one that, according to the indictment, grew quietly between 2010 and 2025, expanding its reach through alliances, intimidation, and the influence of one man. What investigators claimed they uncovered was not simply an extension of the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips, but a structure that operated alongside it, borrowing its history and reputation while functioning as its own independent criminal network. The indictment painted a picture of a group that slipped between street culture, business dealings, and public life, blurring the boundary between legitimate work and alleged criminal control.
Okay, so this is your first time on Vlad TV, so I just kind of want to get into your whole story and your whole history, because you have a very interesting and respected history, especially in Los Angeles.
Right.
So, what part of LA did you actually grow up in?
South Central LA. Born on 81st and Hoover. Raised on which we now call the 60s in Arlington and Slauson, for most of my life.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were born in the 60s?
Yeah, born in 66.
Okay. So you grew up, you were a kid in the 70s.
Right.
Describe LA in your area during that time.
It was kind of like new, because we was moving to the west side of LA, so.
Prosecutors alleged that Henley used decades of street credibility, his OG status, to shape an environment where his voice carried weight. Businesses, entertainers, and community figures reportedly understood the quiet message behind his presence. His name alone could open doors, close opportunities, or shift the balance in certain neighborhoods. Federal officials argued that this influence created an atmosphere where extortion, coercion, and financial manipulation could unfold without overt threats, relying instead on reputation and implied consequences. The list of alleged activities was wide: extortion schemes, robbery operations, illegal gambling, and the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. But the enterprise did not rely solely on street-level actions. Prosecutors pointed to a more sophisticated strategy, one that moved through media spaces as easily as it moved through neighborhoods. Documentaries, podcasts, interviews, and social media appearances formed a public image that was larger than life. The government alleges these platforms helped amplify Henley's legend, projecting a combination of authority, mentorship, and mystique. In their view, these polished narratives strengthened the enterprise by making dissent risky and cooperation appealing. The story of Big U became both a shield and a form of quiet leverage. Yet the indictment also suggested an internal logic to the enterprise, a structure where loyalty, fear, and opportunity intertwined. Violence was referenced not through explicit detail, but through its role in maintaining control, shaping expectations, and reinforcing boundaries inside the network. Still, behind the government's descriptions lingered a deeper question. How did an individual who appeared on community stages and in music studios also become the center of one of Los Angeles' largest federal cases? The answer, investigators argued, lay in the organization he built, one that operated in shadows, on screens, and in the spaces where influence is rarely questioned. The charges: 43 counts of power, money, and violence. The indictment against Eugene Big U Henley Jr. reads like a blueprint of influence and alleged transgression, stretching across decades and sectors of Los Angeles life. In April 2025, a federal grand jury returned 43 separate counts, each representing an accusation that prosecutors say forms part of a larger, organized scheme. The charges range from RICO conspiracy to murder, fraud, extortion, robbery, embezzlement, tax evasion, and even violations of laws intended to prevent exploitation across state lines.
A music executive and community activist is accused of running a criminal empire in Los Angeles. Eugene Henley Jr. facing RICO charges, allegedly tying him to the notorious Rollin' 60s street gang. Eyewitness News reporter Sophie Flay has more on his appearance today in federal court.
A big group of supporters showing up at federal court to support Eugene Henley Jr., also known as Big U. He's facing RICO charges, and the Department of Justice also accusing him of murdering an aspiring rapper in 2021.
At the center of these allegations is Henley himself, a man whose name had become synonymous with both street authority and community mentorship. According to prosecutors, the indictment details a 2021 murder of an aspiring artist signed to Henley's music label, Unique Music. The victim, they allege, had produced material critical of Henley, prompting a response that would now be examined under federal scrutiny. But the charges extend far beyond any single act of violence. Prosecutors claim Henley leveraged his influence to defraud the government, obtaining COVID-19 business relief loans for Unique Music despite the label operating at a loss and being ineligible for such aid. At the same time, he allegedly extracted payments from visiting entertainers through a practice known as check-ins, a system where fees were paid to navigate Los Angeles safely under the watchful eye of gang-affiliated structures. The indictment also highlights financial manipulation at an institutional level. Henley's nonprofit, Developing Options, received funds from both city and federal sources, alongside donations from celebrities and businesses. Federal officials allege these resources were diverted for personal enrichment, transforming charitable contributions into an engine for sustaining the enterprise. Alongside financial and violent allegations, Henley is charged with acts that, according to the government, reinforce the reach of his network: intimidation of business owners, coercion of associates, and the coordination of criminal operations that span neighborhoods and industries alike. Each count, prosecutors argue, reflects a combination of power, money, and the shadow of threat that allowed the Big U enterprise to operate largely unchecked for years. Yet as the courtroom proceedings began, one question loomed larger than the charges themselves. How does a man capable of community outreach, music management, and celebrity connections become the alleged architect of such a sprawling network of crime? The answer, investigators suggest, lies at the intersection of influence, opportunity, and the choices that blurred the line between mentorship and manipulation. The charity scandal, millions meant for youth programs. At the heart of Eugene Big U, Henley Jr.'s public persona was Developing Options, a nonprofit pitched as a force for change in Los Angeles. Funded by the city, federal grants, and high-profile donors, including NBA stars, the organization presented itself as a pathway for youth, a bridge from gang culture to opportunity, and a tool to curb violence. On the surface, it was a story of redemption and influence, one that reinforced Henley's reputation as both a former gang leader and a community advocate.
A Crips gang leader in Los Angeles is wanted on federal RICO charges. Authorities say Eugene Henley Jr., known as Big U, ran a criminal enterprise that committed a series of racketeering crimes, including extortion, human trafficking, fraud, and the 2021 murder of an aspiring rapper. Henley is a music entertainment entrepreneur known for helping Nipsey Hussle launch his music career. Multiple others have been arrested in connection to the RICO case. Henley is considered a fugitive.
Yet, according to federal investigators, the narrative of hope was only one side of the ledger. They allege that Henley systematically diverted funds intended for youth programs and sports initiatives into personal accounts, converting contributions meant to empower the community into a financial engine for his enterprise. Millions of dollars, flowing from city programs, private donors, and federal resources, may have been redirected under the guise of charity. Prosecutors assert that the nonprofit did more than provide a veneer of legitimacy. Developing Options allegedly acted as a shield, insulating members of the Big U enterprise from law enforcement scrutiny while providing Henley with the flexibility to move resources across his network. Grants that were designed to foster social good, the indictment claims, became tools of operational sustainability, reinforcing the reach of an organization described by authorities as mafia-like. The allegations paint a picture of dual realities. On one side, a man speaking at youth centers, attending charity events, and mentoring aspiring athletes. On the other, an alleged orchestrator quietly redirecting funds, managing financial streams, and consolidating influence. Celebrities and public figures, unaware of the alleged scheme, were drawn into a system that blended philanthropy with opportunity, trust with exploitation. Still, the case does not only measure money, it measures trust, perception, and the complex ways power can be disguised as benevolence. How does a single individual, known for public outreach and mentorship, simultaneously navigate legal gray zones that federal prosecutors now claim sustained a criminal enterprise? In the eyes of investigators, the answer lies in a network where appearance and reality diverged, where charity became a tool of control, and where millions meant for young lives were allegedly rerouted to sustain influence and authority. Developing Options, once a symbol of redemption, now raises a haunting question. How do we separate genuine impact from orchestrated performance, especially when trust itself has been weaponized? The fugitive moment, the surrender, and what comes next? On the morning of March 19, 2020, as federal agents executed sweeping raids across Los Angeles, Eugene Big U Henley Jr. disappeared from view. According to prosecutors, he shut off his phones, vanished from contact, and slipped into the margins of the city. For hours, the streets hummed with speculation. Social media churned with theories, rumors, and fragmented footage, while law enforcement worked to piece together a trail that led not only to his properties, but to a network of associates and alleged collaborators.
This is my last video before I turn myself in. I'm with my family. Talk to my sons, I talk to everybody, man. I'm just going to deal with this fight, see what it is. I just want y'all to know, all this stuff is quagmire. This shit is all bullcrap.
Eventually, Henley broke the silence, not to authorities, but online. In a video shared on social platforms, he denied the accusations, claimed he was being targeted for his activism, and pointed fingers at rivals and co-defendants. The public was presented with a man who, on one side, claimed innocence, and, on the other, remained emblematic of the power structures prosecutors said he controlled. His words added complexity to the narrative, a fugitive who engaged the world through the lens of media, a reminder that influence often moves faster than enforcement. Hours later, Henley made a choice that would set the next chapter into motion. He turned himself in. In federal court, a judge cited both the violent nature of the allegations and the risk of flight, ordering him to remain in custody pending trial. Henley pleaded not guilty to all 43 counts, a declaration that transformed the story from raid and allegation into a legal battle whose outcome could reshape both his legacy and the city he once dominated. The federal government framed the case as one of Los Angeles' largest organized crime investigations in decades. Prosecutors emphasized the scale of the alleged operations, the diversity of charges, and the reach of Henley's influence, from gang leadership to entertainment, charity, and financial networks. For investigators, the raids were only the beginning. The evidence collected promised to unravel a web of actions spanning years and possibly to redefine public understanding of power in the city. Yet, beyond the legal details, a question lingers. How does a man who once embodied both community hope and alleged criminal authority reconcile those extremes? As Henley awaits trial, Los Angeles watches not only for verdicts but for a reckoning with the intricate ways influence, legacy, and accountability intersect. The coming months will test more than the law. They will test the stories we tell ourselves about redemption, power, and the line between public service and personal gain. The story of Eugene "Big U" Henley Jr. is a portrait of contrasts, influence and intimidation, charity and alleged corruption, public redemption and private reckoning. It challenges the way power can be wielded quietly, how trust can be manipulated, and how one life can ripple across an entire city. As the courts prepare to weigh fact against allegation, one question lingers. How do we discern genuine change from carefully crafted perception? Share your thoughts below.